I've been thinking about something lately, and I wonder if you felt it too. There's this quiet stirring in your spirit, isn't there? Like something is shifting beneath the surface of your life, something you can't quite name, but you know is real. Maybe you've been carrying a weight for so long that you forgot what it felt like to walk without it. Maybe you've been praying for breakthrough, for clarity, for direction, and all you've heard back is silence. But what if I told you that the silence isn't emptiness? What if the waiting isn't wasted time? What if, right now, in this very moment, there are forces at work on your behalf that you cannot see with your natural eyes? I'm not here to tell you that angels are whispering secrets in your ear or that the universe is conspiring in some vague, mystical way. I'm here to remind you of something the Bible has been telling us all along, that God is faithful, that He hears you, and that even when you can't see the way forward, He is clearing the path ahead of you. In Exodus chapter 14, the Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army charging behind them. They were trapped, terrified, and convinced they were about to die. But Moses said something that still echoes through the ages. "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." And what happened next was a miracle. The sea didn't part because they panicked. It didn't open because they had all the answers. It parted because they trusted, even when trust was the hardest thing to do. I believe that's where you are right now, standing at your own Red Sea. You've been faithful, you've been patient, you've been doing everything you know to do, and yet the path still looks impossible. The obstacles still seem too big. The journey still feels too heavy. But listen to me. Just because you can't see the way doesn't mean the way isn't being made. God doesn't always show you the entire blueprint before He starts building. Sometimes He just asks you to take the next step, to keep your heart soft, to keep your faith steady, and to trust that what He's doing behind the scenes is far greater than anything you could orchestrate on your own. You see, we live in a world that's obsessed with instant results. We want the fruit before we've even planted the seed. We want the promotion, the healing, the reconciliation, the breakthrough, and we want it now. But God's timing doesn't work like that. His ways are higher, His thoughts are deeper, and His plans are always rooted in love. Isaiah 55 verse 8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." And I know that can be frustrating when you're in the middle of the wait, but it's also comforting, because it means that the delays you're experiencing aren't denials. They're preparation, they're protection, they're part of a process that's shaping you into the person you need to be to carry what's coming. Think about it. If God gave you everything you asked for the moment you asked for it, would you be ready? Would you have the strength to steward it? Would you have the character to sustain it? Probably not. And God loves you too much to give you something that would break you instead of bless you. So He waits, not because He's withholding, but because He's refining. He's clearing out the old mindsets, the toxic patterns, the false beliefs that would sabotage your future. He's making room for something new. And that process, as uncomfortable as it is evidence of His faithfulness. I want you to think about a farmer for a moment. When a farmer plants a seed, he doesn't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. He waters it, he tends the soil, he protects it from pests, and then he waits. He trusts the process because he knows that growth happens underground before it ever breaks through the surface. Your life is no different. The things you've been praying for, the dreams you've been nurturing, the healing you've been seeking, they're growing. You just can't see them yet. But that doesn't mean they're not real. In John chapter 11, Jesus received word that his friend Lazarus was sick, but instead of rushing to heal him, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. By the time he arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Mary and Martha were heartbroken. They said, "Lord, if you had been here, our brother would not have died." And I'm sure they felt abandoned, forgotten, like their prayers had fallen on deaf ears. But Jesus wasn't late. He was right on time, because what He was about to do wasn't just heal a sick man, it was raise a dead one. And in doing so, He revealed His glory in a way that a simple healing never could have. Sometimes God delays the answer because He's preparing a miracle that's bigger than what you asked for. Sometimes He lets things die so He can resurrect them in a way that only He can. And I know that's hard to hear when you're in the grief of the waiting, but I need you to hold on, because the God who raised Lazarus is the same God who's working in your life right now. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't abandoned you. He's just making sure that when the breakthrough comes, you'll know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was Him. Now, I want to talk to you about something that might be uncomfortable, and that's the idea of clearing. See, when God is preparing to bless you, He often has to clear things out first. Old relationships that were draining your energy, old habits that were keeping you stuck, old mindsets that were limiting your faith. And that clearing process can feel like loss. It can feel like everything is falling apart. But what if it's actually falling into place? What if the people who walked away were making room for the right people to walk in? What if the doors that closed were protecting you from paths that would have led you away from your purpose? What if the breakdowns were actually breakthroughs in disguise? Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." And that's the key. Trusting Him even when it doesn't make sense, even when it hurts, even when you can't see the bigger picture. Because He does. He sees the beginning from the end. He knows what you need before you even ask, and He's already working it out for your good. I know there are moments when you feel like you're walking through a valley, like the shadows are closing in and the light is so far away you can barely remember what it looks like. But Psalm 23 reminds us, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Notice it says through, not stuck in. You're not staying in the valley, you're passing through it. And even in the darkest moments, you are not alone. God is with you. His presence is your comfort, His word is your guide, and His angels are clearing the path ahead of you. Now, when I say angels, I'm not talking about some mythical creatures floating around in the clouds. I'm talking about the reality of divine intervention. The Bible is full of stories where God sent angels to protect, to guide, to deliver His people. In Psalm 91 verse 11, it says, "For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." That's not just poetry, that's a promise, and it's active in your life right now. You may not see them, you may not feel them, but there are spiritual forces at work on your behalf that moving obstacles, opening doors, shifting circumstances in ways you could never do on your own. And all God is asking you to do is trust the process. Trust that He's in control. Trust that the delays are not denials, the setbacks are not the end, and the pain you're feeling is not permanent. I want to speak to the person watching this who's been feeling forgotten, the one who's been praying the same prayer for months, maybe years, and it feels like nothing is changing. You're not forgotten. God hasn't moved on to someone else's story and left you behind. In fact, He's thinking about you more than you could ever imagine. Psalm 139 verse 17 says, "How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them." You are constantly on His mind. Your name is written on the palms of His hands. Your tears are collected in a bottle. Your prayers are incense before His throne. And even when you can't feel His presence, He's closer than your next breath. So don't give up. Don't lose heart. Don't let the weariness convince you that it's over, because the story isn't finished yet. In fact, I believe you're standing on the edge of a new chapter, a chapter where the seeds you've been planting in secret are about to break through the soil, a chapter where the faith you've held on to in the dark is about to be rewarded in the light, and the pain you've endured is going to become the platform for your testimony. And when that moment comes, you're going to look back and see how every delay had a purpose, how every closed door was actually protection, how every no was leading you to a greater yes. But you have to keep walking. You have to keep believing. You have to keep trusting that God is who He says He is and that He will do what He said He will do. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 23 says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for He who promised is faithful." And that word unswervingly means without wavering, without doubt, without letting circumstances dictate your faith. And I know that's easier said than done, but it's the kind of faith that moves mountains. It's the kind of faith that parts seas. It's the kind of faith that raises the dead. And it's the kind of faith that will carry you through this season and into the next. Now, I want to talk to you about something that might be uncomfortable, and that's the idea of clearing. See, when God is preparing to bless you, He often has to clear things out first. Old relationships that were draining your energy, old habits that were keeping you stuck, old mindsets that were limiting your faith. And that clearing process can feel like loss. It can feel like everything is falling apart. But what if it's actually falling into place? What if the people who walked away were making room for the right people to walk in? What if the doors that closed were protecting you from paths that would have led you away from your purpose? What if the breakdowns were actually breakthroughs in disguise? Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." And that's the key. Trusting Him even when it doesn't make sense, even when it hurts, even when you can't see the bigger picture. Because He does. He sees the beginning from the end. He knows what you need before you even ask, and He's already working it out for your good. I know there are moments when you feel like you're walking through a valley, like the shadows are closing in and the light is so far away you can barely remember what it looks like. But Psalm 23 reminds us, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you